Every law firm leader worth its salt will acknowledge the importance of useful criticism. Mitch Kowalski, who is a general counsel, an academic, and a known author on the subject, is only happy to oblige. In this interview, he makes very interesting connection between millennials and their approach and thinking about working for the firm, and his view that COVID is a pilot project on ways law firms will rethink their talent management practices. Welcome to Law Firm Weekly. It's great to have you here. Mitch Kowalski is the general counsel at Oyun International. He is on the board of directors for Pro Bono Ontario, was a visiting professor in legal operations and innovations at the University of Calgary, and the author of Avoiding Extinction, Reimagining Legal Services for the 21st Century. Mitch, welcome to the studio.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And oh my God, are we ever well into the 21st century, pandemic and all? It's really quite amazing what's happening around us. So that's a kickoff kind of point for our discussion today. Now, one of the reasons that I brought you over to talk to us today is because you have a very particular view on the legal profession overall, and law firms particularly. So I'm not sure it's possible to do, because obviously you wrote a book about it and many articles. This is something you teach for many, many years now. But can you summarize, maybe in just a few paragraphs, some of the major issues that you saw over the years and still around when it comes to law firms, certainly the larger ones, and maybe the legal profession in general?
Sure. So you're asking me to compress my entire course in about a minute.
I know.
Hey,
Welcome to YouTube.
Thanks for the challenge. No, happy. Well, look, there are a few drivers of change, which your audience should be well aware of. Obviously, there's technological advances that are going on that are allowing lawyers to be much more efficient and to do more with less, to be able to skill up people who didn't go to law school to do things that they couldn't necessarily do before. There is a generational change, which is forcing law firms to think differently about how they treat the talent that they're attracting and trying to retain. We're looking at millennials, we're looking at Gen Z, Gen Y, and these are people who are looking for something more than just partnership and money. Then we've had a cascading effect from many clients who have said, oh, hang on, guys, we're looking for different requirements from our law firms. You're all kind of the same. You're all kind of plain vanilla. Give me a more unique client experience so I can differentiate among you. And it's not just based on price, it's based on unique client experience. And so I want to have a better connectivity with you. I want to have a better value add from you. And so these things have been percolating around for at least 10 years or so now. All those other changes that I just talked about, Shai, were sort of changes that were nice to have, but really most law firms could get around with just dabbling around the edges. They didn't really have to do too much to make their clients happy, and the clients weren't really demanding for wholesale change. They're willing to play this out over the long term. COVID changes that.
So this is a perfect segue, because we are now getting into this discussion, obviously, to what extent this point in time is going to actually institute substantial change. And I think you're a bit jaded. I mean, you're a person who have seen...
Maybe a bit.
Maybe just a bit, yes. So you're a person who've seen, us going through the 2007, 2008 financial crisis. And, there was a lot of talk back then about the impact that it may have on law firms and how law is going to be conducted, if you will, or how law firms are going to be managed and the trade in general. Do you feel that there is a chance that this time around there will be a real change? Or are you still a bit skeptical that this is possible for at least a certain layer of more established firms out there?
Yeah, I'm still skeptical. I'm hopeful, but I'm skeptical. And so the reason why I say that is because change is hard. Change is hard for everyone. change is particularly hard for lawyers. Lawyers are very comforted by what they've always done in the past. The benefit of COVID is that this has been the pilot project in how to run your practice in a completely different way. The have is that there are still a lot of lawyers out there who are counting the days to get back to their office. There will be some, whoever, who will take this experiment and say, hang on a second, I'm leaving way too much money on the table staying at a law firm. I've been burning cash for the last 5 or 6 months, and I'll probably continue to burn cash. Why the heck would I do that if I can operate, acceptably from wherever I happen to be working from? And my clients really aren't complaining.
Yeah, and this is interesting. I mean, this is a key issue that you raised in our conversation. And that should be a source of worry for large law firms, where some of those who may be walking out may be striking it on their own or moving to alternative models that are now suddenly looking a little more acceptable, even as mainstream. Should they really worry about that? Is that, in your mind, anecdotally, if you have any insights or otherwise, is that something they really should think about as a result of the next 10 months and everything that came up until now?
I would think so. I mean, if I put on my managing partner's hat, I would already know which partners are not terribly happy, but are just sort of putting up with the current firm environment. And I know which partners have key clients and clients that are quite mobile. And I would start to think hard and fast whether or not those partners who can break off and strike out on their own in an alternative business environment are going to go. I don't have to deal with any office or any politics, and I can still make a ton of money, and maybe even my rates come down and I can still make a really good money. Will it crash all the big firms? Of course not. Those big firms are going to be there forever. There's always people who, need their marble palaces in the sky, who also do, do good lawyering and have some good clients. And there are always going to be clients who are going to want those marble palaces in the sky. There may be fewer of them now that they've seen everybody working in their pajamas in their dining room table, but we'll see some change. I don't think it'll be dramatic, but I think we'll start to see something.
I'm wondering if you were to be consulting a managing partner or chairman of the board of a large law firm on what it is that they need to start thinking or the kind of changes they should be making or not, especially, but not only because of the period that we're in. What would be the first 3 or 4 issues that you would remind them or encourage them to change? And now is the right time to do it, maybe.
Right. First, I think if I was managing partner, I would make the assumption that COVID is going to be around for at least another year. I would also make the assumption that this is probably not going to be the last pandemic. So I would gear up the firm to operate for the next 5 to 10 years as if we are in a pandemic for the next 5 to 10 years, and put in place what systems do we need, what people do we need, where do we need our people, how are we going to remunerate our people, and what client experience we're going to give to our clients. Our talent is going to continue to be more and more millennial over time. The front edge of millennials are 40 this year. So there's, everyone who's under 40 falls into that category. And that's a big ton of people within the law firm environment. They've been asking us, probably not loudly enough, but they've been asking us to have more control over where and when they work. So it becomes a talent issue as well. COVID is a blessing and a curse in the way that it allows people, we did the pilot project, but it also allows people who are more forward thinking to say, gosh, how would I rejig my firm to work in a pandemic situation, assuming that there will be one. And my belief is that there will be one.
You mentioned the issue of their brand and the fact that to a certain extent, clients experience seeing their lawyers working from home I don't know if you use the term degrade, but it certainly makes their brand less, you know, compelling, maybe. So, anyways, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You know, how and what do you think about that?
I would hope, and certainly I've seen it as a client. I've looked way past the brand. The brand is almost meaningless to me now, uh, as a way to differentiate the firm or to determine that some firm is better than the other. Because I've been dealing with people over this video call system. I've been dealing with them sitting at, wherever they happen to be winning. So the brand has become less and less important to myself, and I think that that will carry through. The longer that we go through, it's going to be a brand problem for these firms, because the brand just has disappeared in COVID for these law firms.
Mitch, I do want to continue this conversation. It's really fascinating talking to you and the ideas that you have, and I hope that maybe this will be a humble vehicle to get some of this messaging out to some of the law firms out there. In the meantime, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're extremely busy.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and hopefully it's interesting to everybody.
Thanks, Mitch.